Hello and welcome to Trinity Lutheran Church. My name is Pastor Will and I want to welcome all of y'all here today. Today we're going to be looking at the question of how do we make ashes in this pandemic era. So when we talk about how we make ashes at home, we're going to need a couple of things, such as a lot of these things here on the screen are going to be suggestions of things to use. You don't necessarily have to use exactly these things, but I'm going to explain why we use these particular items. Afterwards, what you're also going to want to have is a place to build the fire. In our case, we have here a hot dog grill that we use for cooking our hot dogs here at church. Um, you can use a lot of different things for this, but the goal here is to have a container that can A, hold fire, and B, not be destroyed by said fire. So for instance, if your container is flammable, choose a different container. If your container is plastic or is going to melt, choose a different container. If your container is your favorite bowl in the world and you don't want it to get damaged, don't build a fire in it. So whatever type of container you find is I encourage you to use. Just find something that can hold fire and it's not going to be a problem that holds fire. After you find wherever it's going to be, what our next step is going to be is to use the aluminum foil, and we're going to place it inside of our container. We're putting aluminum foil down so that we have a place for the ash to collect, because we want to be able to collect the ash from whatever we're burning and just the thing that we're burning, and also to kind of keep some safety here. Our next step here is to actually burn something. Now, like I said, normally we would burn palms from Palm Sunday, but in our case, we want to be able to burn something else. Right now, I have a piece of legal paper. It doesn't usually matter what the color or thing of your paper is, but it's something that's easily flammable and will burn down quite rapidly. All you want to do is take this, place it inside of your container, and then light it on fire. Please keep in mind that we are to be fire safe even during these wintry times. So keep a way to put the fire out handy so that you can put it out as you need to. In our case, I have both water and the lid for this. As part of this process, please don't use anything that has an accelerant in it, simply because it won't help with the ashes when you're done. So you want to burn it as simply and as plain as possible without having to add a lot of things to cause it to burn. Now that we have our ashes burned, we now have basically clumpy pieces of ash. It should be completely burned at this point. Nothing left of whatever the material is. It should look kind of like gray or black. If you burn paper like I did, it's going to look like this. But our next step is to turn this into a fine powdery ash that we can put on our head. So to do that, we need to use our spoon, and we're going to pulverize our ash down into its basically dustiest portion of this. After you have ground your ashes into powder, pour the powder into another container. You can leave it in the aluminum foil if you'd like. I just like to put it into another container. In this case, I'm going to use a Dixie cup to pour it into. After you get it into the cup, we're going to want to combine some oil. The important part here is to use oil. Don't use water, because when you combine ash and water, it produces a substance that if you put it on your skin, it will burn, and not in a good way. So we want to make sure that you use oil instead of water. The exact ratio of oil to ash is a bit of a challenge, especially since you're going to be looking at a smaller amount. So my recommendation is add a small amount of oil to our ash. In this particular case, if you add too much oil to it, it's going to turn into soup, which is sort of what ours came into. If you don't add enough, it just looks still like dry powder. So it's a magic point where you can always add more oil, but you can't take oil away. In fact, if you have taken oil away, the only other way to do that is to make more ash and combine it with it. So if you've made a lot of ash, my other recommendation is keep some of that ash aside so that you can kind of use the ash oil combination until you get it to the right texture mixture that you've done. So at this point, you should have ashes that sort of look something like this. Um, it's okay if they're a little soupy. You can always do it. It's just going to run a little bit on your head. On Ash Wednesday, what you're going to do is you're going to stick your finger into the ashes, and then you're going to make the sign of your cross on your head or someone else's head, saying, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." I will warn you, making a sign of a cross is always going to be messy. It's always going to look a little funky. If you have realized that your ashes are totally wrong and you don't want to put them on your head, don't worry. You're welcome to come by the church. We're going to be doing imposition of ashes in the cutout from 11:30 to 1 on Ash Wednesday and from 4:30 to 5:30 on Ash Wednesday. Thank you so much for your time and God bless.